Now, before you began watching this series of videos, as you enrolled in the course, you should have received an ebook. That ebook comes in the form of a resource for a piece of software called VitalSource Bookshelf from a company called Gilmore. Now, your VitalSource Bookshelf ebook contains 2 volumes. The first one is a lecture manual, and the next one is a lab manual. Okay? Now, the lecture guide contains a copy of all of these slides that you're seeing here, as well as some notes to go with most of the slides themselves that give you a little bit more detail into what I'll be talking about on each of the slides. And the lab manual gives you instructions for completing each of the labs. You'll also see the lab manual in your Lab Connect environment, where you have your main screen on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, you'll see the instructions to complete the lab. So you actually see that in 2 different pieces. Now, as you look at this VitalSource Bookshelf application, these 2 volumes actually appear to be quite similar. In some cases, you'll think, oh, I only have 1 ebook. But trust me, if you click on the thumbnail below the book that you happen to be in, you'll see the other book, right? Remember, one's a lab manual and the other's a lecture guide. So make sure that you can see both of those. Now, as you're dealing with the lab manual in particular, there are a few typographical conventions that you should be aware of, and anybody that's really read technical documentation should be aware of some of these particular conventions that we are invoking here as well. Now, anything that you see in a monospaced font, in our case, we just use a simple Courier font in the lab manual. Anything in a monospaced font you'll see relates to something on the command line or a path or something like that. You'll launch a command, you'll release an IP address, well, actually, let's try that one more time. Now, anything that you see in a monospaced font, okay, will relate to something on the command line. It'll be a path or a command that we'll refer to. If it's bolded, it's actually something that you will be asked to type in. Okay? Anything that is in a proportional typeface, in our case, we simply use Arial typeface that everybody's familiar with, you will see relate to a something in the graphical interface. In our case, it's the vSphere client. Click here, click there, that sort of thing. Those will all be bolded. So you'll know that if you see something in bold, okay, it's something that you need to do. Okay? Whether or not it's relative to a command line, in which case we'll use a Courier font, or an Arial font if we ask you to click on someplace on a graphical interface. Okay. Now, italics are used for things like book titles and those sorts of things. And if we use the greater or less than signs, we're looking at placeholder values and things like that. Type in your ESXi host name in the URL bar of a browser, for example. Now, of course, you're going to want to dive deeper into any topic or any system that you're working with on a regular basis. Okay? Now, of course, you can use as a reference your lecture manual here. Okay? You can actually even use the lab guide as a bit of a reference for how you might conduct a particular operation. But of course, you're going to want to come back to VMware's resources in terms of VMware's documentation around any of these topics as well. Now, if you head over to docs.vmware.com, and I'll show you that plain URL on the next slide, you're going to see all of VMware's documentation, okay, at docs.vmware.com. If you click on the vSphere link and then choose your version of vSphere, in this case we're talking about vSphere 7, you'll see all of the documentation around vSphere 7. Now, this isn't one monolithic book, right? We divide our topics into multiple sections. So we have an installation and setup guide, we have a server and host management guide, we have a virtual machine administration guide, and so on. Okay? Now, these links that you see here are obviously not hot clickable for you. You're watching a video, so just head over to docs.vmware.com. Okay? You'll see in this case the security guide and the resource management guide, and all of that stuff will be there. Now, there are a couple of other really interesting sites over at VMware.com that I would like to point you to. Okay, the first one is the compatibility guide. This tells us whether or not one particular product, VMware product, is compatible with another particular VMware product, or a particular version of ESXi is compatible with a particular version of vCenter Server, and so on. Okay, so we used to call the product interoperability matrix. Now we call it the compatibility guide, and you can find it at vmware.com/resources/compatibility. Now, anytime you think to yourself, well, gee, how many virtual machines can I run on my host? How many ports can I have on my virtual switch? How much CPU can I assign to a particular virtual machine? Any of those questions of how much or how many obviously will depend on the particular version of vSphere that you're running. So head over to a new site that VMware has built called configmax.vmware.com, and you'll find a particular version of ESXi that you're looking for, and you can look at all of those configuration maximums. Now, one note for you, if you're interested in the certification at VMware, nobody on any VMware certification exam will ask you ever, how many LUNs can I access from a particular ESXi host? We'll never ask you that stuff, but we may ask you, where can you find that information? Okay, the answer to that is always configmax.vmware.com. So some other resources that we have available here. Docs.vmware.com, once again, is the main VMware documentation site. At communities.vmware.com, you'll find our technical forums. And those are staffed by other VMware users like you, as well as VMware employees and subject matter experts who are there to help answer your questions outside of the more formalized support teams that we have at VMware.com. You can always access your support portal at VMware.com/support. Now, a lot of you might say, hey, how long do I have these labs accessible to me, right? Well, the answer for your vSphere On Demand class is 30 days, which is fine. But what about beyond that? Well, if you actually want to test any of VMware's products, or test a particular component of VMware's products, head over to hol.vmware.com. That's VMware's hands-on labs, which is actually an environment very similar to the one that you're going to be working with in your labs through this class. Okay, but it allows you to go way beyond just vSphere into NSX, into the vRealize suite, lots of different things that you can do to essentially get your hands on to play with all of VMware's really exciting software. If you want to learn about how to really get smart on that stuff, well, you've gotten a really great start here with this on-demand course. But of course, other courses are available at vmware.com/education. Speaking of VMware education, if you are interested in becoming an expert in any of VMware's products, or you may be interested really in certification on VMware's products, the VMware Learning Paths is a good way to help you to understand what you need to do, what I need to do to get some expertise. I'll take a class, I'll play with a particular product. Well, which class and which products and things like that to achieve what certification, right? That's the VMware Learning Paths kind of wizard that it'll drive you through about how to get smart on different VMware products. Okay? The VMware Learning Zone is where you may have found this class, okay? Where you can actually find other classes, as well as other short videos from VMware experts around the world describing concepts around VMware's software. Now, if you want to become certified as a VMware certified professional, the VMware certification website is a really good place to start. Certification.vmware.com or vmware.com/certification as well. Okay. Now, know that as we have different types of products at VMware, we have different tracks along that certification. You happen to be here in the data center virtualization track. Okay. And a certification as what we call a VMware Certified Professional, which is really our level 2 certification, which is if you want to be a technical administrator, it's where you want to start. Okay? The VCA is really about positioning and understanding what each of the products are. Okay? You're at a higher level than that. Okay? You want to become a VCP, a VMware Certified Professional. And it, of course, starts with taking a class like this. Okay? A 5-day course from VMware Education is required for your VCP. Okay? When you go to sit that exam consists of a series of multiple choice questions. Now, if you actually want to get a little bit more hands-on, you can become a VMware Certified Advanced Professional. And there are 2 advanced professional certifications. One's a design certification, which is, again, another series of multiple choice questions that really gear us towards how we might design a VMware architecture. Okay? And the other is a deploy, which is actually based on our hands-on labs, where you'll be given a scenario and then you're asked to push the buttons and twist the knobs and learn actually how to, or prove that you can, execute a series of tasks in a software-defined data center. Now, if you get both the design and deploy certifications together, you become a VMware Certified Implementation Expert, which is really a badge that shows that I have completed both of those VCAP certifications. And if you even want to go beyond that, you can become a VMware Certified Design Expert. This is where you will come up with a design, present it to VMware. It's almost like the defense of a doctoral dissertation, right? So you want to become a PhD in VMware? That's what our VMware Certified Design Expert, or VCDX certification, is all about. And if you're interested in that, well, more power to you. Good luck, and let me know, please do, that you've completed that. I'll be so interested and so excited for you. Now, there are also a number of badges which indicate particular achievements that you have done in your process of becoming a VMware expert. Okay? You will get a badge each time you complete one of the certifications, like VMware Certified Professional in Data Center Virtualization, this one here. Here's our Implementation Expert. We also have specialist badges around software that we don't necessarily have a full certification in, like vSAN, for example. So we have a badge that you are a vSAN specialist, okay? Or a subject matter expert. We have a badge that says you've done 2 VMware certifications, things like that. It's a really great thing, and you can actually take these badges and add them, for example, to your LinkedIn profile to show your credentials and pre-qualify you, for example, for projects that an organization might have as they are building out their VMware infrastructure. Now, the last thing that we want to cover here in Module 1 is the concept of why would I do something that we are talking about in these lessons or in these modules. Why would I implement storage, and why would I implement storage in a particular way? Why would I implement a virtual standard switch versus a VMware distributed switch? Why would I do those sorts of things? Well, we'll introduce the whys and the use cases of each of the functions or features in vSphere in terms of a fictitious company, right? We call it Virtual Beans. Over at vmbeans.com, right, we have built, or there is, right, in this fictitious world, a cyber cafe or a series of cyber cafes, right? Online and physical coffee shops where you can go to buy internet resources and coffee. Excellent, right? So this is the fictitious scenario where we'll introduce use cases throughout the course. Okay, so in this case, Virtual Beans, right, our cyber cafe coffee shop that is growing like crazy and doing really well in this modern day and age, has recently decided to implement vSphere. Of course, that's what we will all be doing for our organizations as well. We'll be implementing and we'll be maintaining and we'll be growing our software-defined data center and vSphere footprint within that software-defined data center. So we'll use this scenario as we cover each of the different concepts throughout the course of Install, Configure, Manage version 7. So this is going to be our decision. How will we implement these things? We are the system administrator, we are the system architects, and we have to decide what systems to implement, how and why, right? For, in this case, virtual beans. Well, when we come back, we'll look at all of the different basic concepts around the software-defined data center, and we'll introduce some of those main terms that we'll be talking and using throughout the entire course. Okay. Hope you're enjoying this so far. We'll see you real soon in module number 2.